Oh, hi there, YouTubers. Not seen much of me lately, but like, as I said, a lot of the things I don't tend to just put stuff on unless there's something I want to show. The first thing I would on here is this is my little sort of like when I go into the out into the bush sort of thing, my fixing, repairing, maintenance type of stuff. But that's a different one. But what I'd like to show is a strop that different type of strop I've been making for quite some time now. They've been out and about and I'm not getting any complaints or anything, so I think they seem to be going down quite well. Now, this came about when I was trying to think of a way to be able to meet a number of needs, both when I was either in the shop, at home, out in the field, wherever, reducing the amount of things that needed to be carried. And also there's different edges to be maintained, whether you're looking at just stropping on an axe or a parang or a normal knife, a pocket knife, the different types of angles. And I came up with a bit of an idea, and basically this is it. Now, there's nothing unusual about the fact that it has a rough side, the leather stuck rough side up on one side and smooth side on the other. But what I did was I actually put that to a piece of stout but flexible plastic. So that's glued on to here. And the reason for that is that what this allows me to do is it allows me to use the strop for a variety of different edge types. Now, obviously, by laying this on something flat and hard with it, so if you're out and about or you're at home, you've got a workbench, if you're out and about, you could just chisel a piece of a branch flat, anything that would get that flat, or just use a flat branch. And that would keep this very, very flat, and then it becomes ideal really for the type of like a Scandi type bevel, anything like that, or a chisel bevel. However, by actually introducing a small bend into it, either by placing this on the hand, I've just got an axe here. Please excuse this, I've got this in doing a bit of work on it for somebody. But finishing off an axe, by applying pressure, what you can actually do is you put a small amount of bend in there. So the same thing will actually work for convex edges, convex knives. At the same time, one of the things I've been doing a lot of work on at the minute is different types of edges. So if you're actually finishing an edge off, even with the Scandi, if somebody has a Scandi, or you finish off a hunting knife or anything like that, what I say is by putting this into your hand to do the last few strokes, just really good firm pressure, nice and steady, don't slide off and cut yourself or something. Got to say these things, haven't we? But just by that little bit of pressure, what you're actually going to do is you're almost starting to induce like a micro convex or something. You're going to make sure that that burr's completely gone, and at the same time just start to just put a tiny bit of and it wouldn't be visible to the eye, but you're just going to start to just tack that edge around a little bit, just give it a little bit more toughness. Also for micro bevels, finishing off micro bevels and things like that, a good firm pressure, it will polish the flat and polish the micro bevel. So that basically was the remit behind it, and it works, and it has worked, and it is working, and it's I've actually there's quite a few of these gone out over the last, I think I've been doing this for about 6-8 months, maybe a bit longer, and there's a lot of them gone out, and the reports I've been getting are very, very favourable, that they're everything from just sticking it on the kitchen table and doing the kitchen knives to out in the field, they seem to be working. And I think there were two other sort of side effects, if you want, that came from this. One is because it is small, relatively speaking it's very small, and it's light and it's slim, it means I no longer carry a pocket strop. I used to carry a half-size pocket strop. I don't know if I keep these. I do keep this one on my little side because I've got it's good for spoons. But I used to carry that sort of size when I was out in the field against the full-size one. And the reason being, it was smaller, it was lighter. Well, actually, it's no lighter because it's made of timber, but it was a little bit lighter, but just smaller and easier to carry. Whereas, that sort of size with a full piece of wood starts getting quite large and quite heavy. Whereas this sort of size, roughly about 20 centimeters by 4, something like a, it's a 8x2 or something like that. It's actually quite light. You can even put it in a jeans, like a cargo pocket or something like that. And again, I just keep it in a little plastic bag, and fits in my pack, fits in my gear very nicely, and gives me a full-size strop to work on rather than working on something smaller, like a half-sized one. The care of it is exactly the same as anything else. I personally use I just use a bit of Autosol, which you can get from most car places, even a lot of DIY places do the also. It's not that it's any better than anything else, it's just easy to get hold of and easy to apply. That's all it is. With that, I put a little bit of very, very fine oil on there. I use a Croil, which is a shooter's oil. A lot of bench resters shooters use it, and it's like it's a very, very fine engineering oil used for freeing up parts and things like that. So it's really fine, and that's just because the Autosol, when it does dry, it becomes a powder. It can dry the leather out a bit. So a little bit of the oil applied at the same time, and then all I do is, as you can see, the Autosol is actually white, but you can start to see hopefully the different colours on there. And that's just the steel particles being taken off, because you're not just stropping the knife and taking a burr off, you're actually polishing the edge as well, which also helps to remove the burr. So the more you strop, the less you'll ever have to sharpen. It's very rare unless I have some real hard work that I actually go back to a stone these days. I just strop on a regular basis. And then, once the powder's applied, once cream is applied I should say, it does become a powder, so it becomes dry, so another reason to keep it in the bag. You don't have to do that every time. And once this goes predominantly black and it starts to go a bit shiny, that's all the metal particles, so it's not going to be abrasive anymore. Then I just use the back of my knife to scrape that down. Oh, where's my knife? Where's my knife? There it is. Oh. I just use the back of my knife on the actual strop and just scrape that down. And no, you don't have to go mad, you don't have to get it right off. You just go down to where you can actually lift a little bit. You start to lift off a lot of the lifting the nap up a little bit, reapply it, and then off you go again. Depending on how much you do it, will be how often you have to reapply, but you get quite a few stropping sessions out of each application. So it's like if you're going away for a weekend, you don't have to carry the Autosol, just put a bit of fresh strop and paste on, and it'll keep you going all weekend, or even longer, depending on how much you do it. So yeah, so that's just, and I missed the second benefit of it, something I hadn't even noticed on my other one until I actually was having a careful look at it, was that because it's plastic, it doesn't take on moisture, therefore it doesn't warp. So the actual shape of it doesn't change. So they're the two benefits. So that's basically the strop that I produce. If you don't have access to Autosol, don't panic. You can use any kind of polishing paste. You can get a lot of the blocks that you find in a lot of engineering shops that go on to buffing wheels and things like that. They work. They're just a bit harder to apply and a bit harder to keep up on. Quite good for taking out in the field. Like I say, it's light. You can take it with you. So it's a lot light. That's a lot lighter even than a small 2x1 pocket stone, which is what I tend to carry as well anyway, or a pup. So yes, and it's like I say, it's useful because of the way it is, and depending on a little bit of thought about how you're using it, you can do anything from axes to the bigger machetes, parangs, knives, convex edges, anything you want. So there we go. I hope that was reasonably interesting. First one back for a while. I've got a couple more videos coming up on different things, and I'm going to try and start getting some a bit more outdoorsy if I can. Been a bit preoccupied of late. I've had a lot on my plate. So anyway, with that, I will catch you guys on the flip side, and be careful out there.